Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the third episode of the Overanalysts, a show we're very, very excited to bring you because it is the first episode recorded in 2021, now that the worst year in modern history has passed us by.
Yeah,
My name
because
is Brady.
everything changed because a year
The
changed.
worst year yet.
My name is Brady, and I'm being joined, as always, by Tina, or Seth the Overwitch,
Hi.
and Matai, or Commander, or Comrade Potato on Twitch.
But yes, hi.
Mate, sorry. I will get these down eventually.
Yeah, that's fine.
And yeah, today we're going to be offering like distinct retrospectives on 2020, like in the gaming space, both from an industry-wide perspective, like what released on certain platforms and kind of how certain development houses fared, and just our personal experiences. This is going to be relatively informal and probably just a bit long because, goodness gracious, a lot happened in a year that saw the space, the industry, transformed by both the launch of, I believe, the 9th console generation.
Oh,
in the
yes.
form of Xbox Series X, and ostensibly the PlayStation 5, which, according to legend, has released, but I have seen no actual evidence of the same.
Apparently, they're releasing a new skin for it, but yeah, I mean, nobody can get the console.
And, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, which brought the entire world to its knees in a wash of lockdowns, tragedy, and extremely poorly handled like government responses in several places around the world. It affected the industry too, as it did, I think, every sector of public life. And that's going to be reflected, I think, when we see kind of around mid-year, May, June, a lot of projects that hadn't already gone gold are going to be delayed or released in kind of a slapdash fashion as a result of compromises made. But that's it for our preface. We're just going to kind of start breaking this down. So who would like to go first with what they found?
I would just like to, before we start, just mention that we are also doing this live on Twitch right now. So in case... in case anyone wants to add onto our comments or ask us questions or whatever, feel free to do so. We will read them eventually. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Seth, you looked at Switch games released over the year, right?
I looked into Switch games, and I also looked into a little bit of... For the love of God, why?
No, Twitch just
right. Sure. So I looked into Switch games and also VR, because to be honest, like, VR did not have that much happening. It had some big things happening, but not many things happening, right? And the same can be said for the Switch, because it did have a couple of exclusive releases, but mostly it was either joint releases with the consoles, like games that were already released on PlayStation and Xbox, or they were some sort of remake or refurbish or remaster from the Wii or Wii U. Et tu, Brutus.
Yeah.
Right. So basically what I've done is I went through like the list of games that were released, and I noted down some noteworthy releases. Most of them are some JRPG titles that quite a lot of people have not heard of because they were popular in Japan but not so much in the West. Right. So what I will be focusing on is just the bigger titles, and if there are smaller titles, then I'm gonna mention why I think they are noteworthy and why people should check them out. Right, so let's start. First, we have January. Nothing of importance happened then because it was still pre-pandemic, so everyone was still living their life and everyone was still going outside. However, there was one game that released that made people a little bit salty, and that game is called Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Fire Emblem Encore.
Oh.
The reason why it made people salty is because it was a re-release from a Wii U title If you remember, that was that console that nobody cared about. And it was a release from 2015. The issue with it is that it's a game made by Atlas that is a merge from Persona and Fire Emblem. So Fire Emblem is quite a big title, Persona as well. But what people wanted to see is finally a Persona title on the console, on the Switch console. And so the release of something like this made them a little bit upset, because why would you re-release a game from 2015 when people really, really want to see Persona? More precisely, they wanted to see Persona 5, which already got another version for, I think, was it like Persona
5 Royal?
Royal, yeah, exactly. So yeah, it still got quite good reviews when it comes to the critics. It was 81% on Metacritic, but the users were not super happy, so it was like around 5 to 6 out of 10. So yeah, that was a bit of a mixed batch. So in February, yeah?
Just really quickly, to the best of my knowledge, though, the game itself, even among the fandom, right, like the actual core experience, like back in 2015, was like very well received. Is that right?
Yeah. So the original game, as it was very well received. It was just the fact that it got re-released on the Switch instead of releasing Persona 5, which people were asking for.
It's the Switch's answer to Doom Eternal. Or, Diablo Immortal, right?
Yeah, basically. So the what did I want to say? I forgot. Never mind. Anyways, in February, we did not have any exclusives from Nintendo. The only thing that we have gotten that is noteworthy were Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition that reached the Switch. It was a game that was also asked for by quite a lot of people. We got Darksider Genesis that released on everything, like maybe even the toasters at this point. But it was like that game is not so well received. It really stepped away from the standard Darksiders formula. It did not sit well with quite a lot of the fandom. It's still a play-worthy game. Like if you enjoy Darksiders titles, I think you should give it a try to have the complete story. But it's a much different gameplay style than the usual Darksider games.
It's an isometric dungeon crawler, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whilst all the other games are action RPGs, basically hack and slash kind of games. And also we got Metro Redux, which was also very well received on the Switch. Like also a game that people did not think it would come out on Switch as like a family console. So it was really nice to see that it was well received. And now we come to our biggest release in March. It was Animal Crossing. So Animal Crossing New Horizons, and a very unfortunate fact that it released on the same day as Doom 64, which caused quite a lot of memes to pop up with like Isabel from Animal Crossing being dressed in Doom clothes, or her being on top of the Doom guy with a gigantic pistol or something. So that was quite funny to see. And since Animal Crossing is such a big title, it kind of made Doom's release not shine to its fullest. But still, I think one of the biggest points why Animal Crossing's release was as successful as it was because of the start of the lockdown, which was coincidentally in the same week as the release of Animal Crossing. For some people, it was on the same day. It was literally the last thing they did before they sat down in their houses and like locked themselves up. So yeah, it wasn't really a big surprise that it sold amazingly. It broke all records when it was when it was released. It also won Game of the Year award for the best family game, like to nobody's surprise. Metacritic gave it 90%, which is quite surprising for a game that is not really... Let's say it's basically a chore simulator, It's not... it's not your typical... Yeah. And yeah, as I said, it sold 1.88 million games at launch, which was the record at that time. So yeah, have you guys tried Animal Crossing?
Nope. Is that like Switch only?
Yes, it is Switch only.
Well, then no.
Then no.
I have not. I played the original on GameCube, and then I believe it was City Folk on the Wii. And they're absolutely delightful little titles, I think, and I definitely understand the fandom. But especially during the lockdown, when I have just been set in my 3-room apartment for now the better part of a year, I'm like, man, I really want to, like, for my escapist fiction, go do something.
Yeah, exactly.
But they are adorable, and I definitely get the appeal of a game like that that's very calm and happy and kind of routinized during a time of like such significant disruption in so many people's lives. I know a couple people who say that like just having something cheery like that to unwind with did wonders for them in the initial months of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So here's to you, Tom Nook.
Yeah, Tom Nook and his exploitation. But yeah, I have the Animal Crossing game. I didn't buy it when it came out. I think I waited maybe a month or 2 months after that. I was genuinely curious because quite a lot of people were playing it still after its release. I thought it was going to be like, maybe 1 or 2 week hype, because genuinely you don't have that many things to do for like your typical game. And to my surprise, I have around 100 hours on Animal Crossing.
Wow.
And I have absolutely nothing to show for, because my problem was that it's such a peaceful game that at some point I would fall asleep with my Switch in my hands. So I was stacking up hours by sleeping with my Switch. So yeah. And also I switched my Switches a couple of months ago, and apparently that erased my Animal Crossing save, which I did not think would happen. So my island is now completely blank.
So, just a question from me, and especially for anybody out there who's familiar with the series. Does it feel like the newest installment iterates on the formula in some pretty significant ways? And like, if people have other installments in the series, like maybe even older ones from back in the day, do you think it would still be worth picking this one up at its current price?
So I have the Animal Crossing New Leaf, the version for the 3DS, and I used to like it quite a lot. I do not think like it brought that many new things to justify the €60 price. It's still a great game, for what it is. Sure. Honestly, I don't like games like that. They really have no appeal to me. But when it comes to like what they added, I think they added maybe a couple of more new mechanics, but at the end, it all boils down to the same old formula of you doing your daily chores and decorating the island. So It's still the same thing. I don't know how it's gonna be in the future, because they're releasing frequent like seasonal events. So they might be adding something new in the future, but for now it's just that.
I got you.
All right, let's continue. So the next one is Trials of Mana remake that came out in April. So as the title itself says, again, it's a remake, not a new game. It got released by Square Enix, of course, and it got quite a lot of mixed reviews. So a lot of people were happy that they're getting finally a Mana game on the Switch, like, the fans of the series. However, the experts were not super happy, because they said it brought a very old, outdated narrative, and exploration was pretty dull. So what used to be fun back in the day, now on the newer consoles, is just not as fun anymore. So yeah, that might not even be the game's fault, just how the gaming community has evolved, and JRPGs in general, how they have evolved. So yeah. Do you know anything about the Mana series, Brady? Have you played them?
Oh god, yeah. I had one very specific entry in the series for the Game Boy Advance back in the day.
Just that one.
Yeah, Secret of Mana. may have been the name, and it
Yeah.
was very, very good. As far as a fairly simple action RPG from a mechanical perspective goes, it was really enjoyable. It had a great world and well-written characters and all that, even if necessarily the mechanical or visual presentation weren't phenomenal. And it's funny you bring up that people maybe thought this newer entry was a little stagnant, because I want to say that a straight up re-release, not like a remaster or remake or anything like that, of two of the earlier Mana titles were re-released on Switch a couple years ago. Yeah, the Collection of Mana.
Yeah, Collection of Mana.
And that one, to the best of my knowledge, was very well received. And that was just straight up the old games again.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, that the same audience will still respond quite positively to something that I suppose today would feel to them somewhat outdated or obsolete. But like when you try to iterate upon that while retaining its heart and core, we've not just seen this with Mana. They'll then say, "Oh, well, that's too old. That feels too clunky. I don't get it." From what I've seen of the new game, it looks really nice.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's really weird for me as well. But anyways, moving on to May, we have a couple of bigger names showing up that month. Unfortunately, all of them again are ports. So the biggest one definitely that released during that month was Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Very wanted title to release on the Switch by many JRPG fans. It got quite nice reviews, around 89% on Metacritic, and as I mentioned, it was a Wii port, so again, you didn't really get much new things, but fans of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 really wanted this title to also come on the Switch. And also, one of the more surprising releases that were in May was the bundle of BioShock Collection, bundle of Borderlands Collection, and XCOM 2, which all came out on the same day, 29th of May. So they're all straight up ports onto the Switch. I have personally purchased BioShock and Borderlands because I was curious to see how they would run on the Switch. They run pretty smoothly, I gotta say, but also quite a lot of them were older games anyways. So, if Witcher can run on the Switch, they can as well. However, what really disappointed me is that all of the titles contain 3 games. So BioShock is BioShock 1, BioShock 2, and Infinite. Borderlands is 1, 2, and the pre-sequel. However, on the cartridge itself, you only get 1 title, and the rest you have to download. Right. And the downloads are huge. Like, they're really, really huge. It took me an entire day to download all of them, and then I filled up my entire Switch's memory, so I will just do it one by one. But it's still fun to have those titles on a handheld, like, just sitting in your bed and listening to Handsome Jack talk about his diamond pony. There's just, they're just like, something nice about that. Right. In June, then, we have also a couple of bigger names, which is first The Outer Worlds, personally one of my favorite games of the year. It is a game from 2019, but it was released on the Switch in the 2020, so I'm still counting it.
Right.
So it actually received quite bad reviews from the critics because they had to dull down the graphics quite a lot to make it work on the Switch, which did make some of the environment quite bland and a bit rectangulish. But since I have not played them on the other platforms and just played it on the Switch, for me it was fantastic. Basically that was their main complaint. Like, because of the weaker hardware, they had to tune down quite a lot of effects and quite a lot of graphics. Pokemon Sword and Shield got their first big DLC upgrade, Isle of Armor, which introduced a lot of new legendaries, new gym leaders, new areas to explore. So, yeah, basically added quite a lot of things that people were asking for to be in the original game, but it didn't make it. So, yeah, quite a lot of new stuff for the Pokemon fandom. But again, after I finished playing Sword and Shield, I did not feel like I wanted more. I just finished it. I did not, of course, collect all of the Pokemon. I had like maybe 90% of the Pokedex full. And when I heard that they're going to keep releasing new Pokemon as time passes, I just decided that I don't have time for that. So I was just like, nope, I'm done.
Like really, once you've seen Long Meowth, you've gotten your 60 euros out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Long Meowth and that what is it?
Pikachu.
Yeah. The Gigantamax Pikachu thing. It's oof. Yeah. Another Pokemon title that released that month that was also quite a surprise for a lot of Pokemon fans was Pokemon Cafe Mix, which was a free game, which was quite surprising. Free, but with microtransactions, of course. It was a puzzle game, one of those standard ones like connect the colors and stuff like that. But it was nominated for the best mobile game because not only it released on Switch but also on iOS and on Android. So yeah, go figure. It was that type of the game, like what your mother wants to play after she's done with Candy Crush.
Mm-hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, just saying, but you know, they're not real games. Yeah. And also one exciting, at least for me, release that was that month is the Prisoner's Edition of Dead Cells. I personally purchased the Signature Edition because it came with like a audio CD art book, a couple of trinkets, a big statue of the prisoner, etc. And the big thing was that it finally included the first big DLC, Bad Seed. So you would get all of it together. And I think that a new DLC is coming out somewhere at the start of this year. So that's also something very exciting. July finally shows us a release for the Switch that was not a port, not a remake, not a remaster, but a full brand new game, Paper Mario The Origami King, which was part of the 35th anniversary celebration. So the critics praised it, but the players not that much. Like the general consensus is it's cute, but the combat mechanics are not as good as they thought it would be. Also, it was nominated for multiple awards, mostly in the family game category. It didn't win, as far as I know, because they have an Animal Crossing to compete with. So, yeah.
I will say, though, one of the best soundtracks of the year, bar none. Like, the Origami King OST is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, though, that's generally been true of Paper Mario games. Even, like, Color Splash had a great soundtrack.
Yeah, I personally enjoyed it. I haven't finished it. I came pretty far, but I haven't finished it. I like the humor in it. It's, cheesy, corny, a lot of dad jokes and stuff like that, but it's cute, but I do agree that combat system sometimes was painful to execute, mostly because it does so much hand holding that at some point is annoying. You just want to scream at the screen and say, can you please shut up and let me play the game?
And the exploration, I think, like the world design, environment design, and the writing are largely what made it. The moment-to-moment combat or gameplay, you're right, is not great.
Right.
But just running around the world and seeing what you can discover and what's in every area, that was a great deal of fun.
Mm-hmm. And alongside Paper Mario, we had also one big name release on the Switch, which was, again, a port. Catherine Full Body released on the Switch, made by Atlas, and it was a very well received game. Not on the Switch though. On the Switch, it was like positive, like mostly positive. But when it got released for the first time, I think it was PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 3. I'm not sure. It received a lot of praise, mostly because of its creepy nature. So for those who don't know, it starts off as like some sort of visual novel about a guy that's supposed to get married but cheats on his girlfriend. And things take a very weird turn afterwards. And by weird, I mean very creepy nightmares, monsters, etc. So not everything is as it seems. Have you played Catherine?
I have not, but I've seen. First off, it's an Atlas title, I believe, and I love everything they do.
Yeah.
I've not had the chance to get hands on it myself, but I've seen a fair amount of gameplay, and I'm familiar with the narrative. I'll say, for a game with what initially seems to be like a very silly world and characters, like there's all these little sheep people running around with crazy exaggerated personalities.
Yeah.
It, depending on the choices the player makes and the path you take, can be a very touching, well-written story about like the value of like interpersonal relationships and fidelity, and it's really well done, I have to say.
Yeah. What about you, Potato? Have you played it?
Not really.
All right. So in August, the only noteworthy thing is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, again a remaster from GameCube. So nothing special was added. It was just Final Fantasy. People love Final Fantasy. The title did well, so whatever. There's that. September, however, brought us quite a lot of titles that again got ported to the Switch, but this time they were, names that are quite interesting. We got Ori and the Will of the Wisps, one of the most beautiful platformers out there. Also, we've got The Long Dark, an award-winning survival game about a guy that ends up in a plane crash and then tries to find his wife in the snow. Also, we got one of my favorite games, Hades, made by the same studio that made Bastion, which was also a very well-received game. It's a isometric dungeon crawler roguelike game, I would say. I've been playing it like crazy. It has so much replay value. The characters are funny, very well designed. Voice acting is pretty good. The soundtrack is absolutely amazing. I'm not sure if it won the Game of the Year for the soundtrack or not, but I have to check that one out. But I think it got at least nominated.
It won Game of the Year like outright from several outlets. I know Destructoid gave it their vote, and from what I've seen, we could talk about this later. I think it definitely deserves it. Like that is one of the stronger cases you could make for Hades being one of the best all-around releases of the year.
Yeah. And one big title, Nintendo exclusive, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, that was very badly received by the community due to a couple of issues with it. The first issue is that it would disappear by the end of March. So it was a limited release. So if you did not get your copy on it by March 31st, well, they're very sorry, but you cannot have it anymore. What did they do with it? It was just a collection of Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario 64, and Mario Sunshine. Did they do anything better with it? Not really. Like they maybe polished it a little bit. The graphics are absolutely the same, and as far as I'm aware, gameplay is exactly the same as well, right?
Yes, with the exception of I've not experienced this firsthand as I'm not through playing Sunshine on stream, but apparently Galaxy's moment-to-moment control is made significantly more cumbersome by the fact that the star cursor from the initial release that actually integrated the Wii pointer really well to like grab star bits, the game's answer to regular coins, when they appear on screen or hold enemies in their tracks or fire star bits at certain locations, has been replaced with a cursor that you have to toggle by like holding down a shoulder button. So you have to stop the action and move a cursor around while you're like stood stock still. But apparently the other two, I can say firsthand, do play exactly the same as they did at release. Just as well, no better.
I played myself Galaxy, and I can completely agree with what you said. Like, collecting the star bits is extremely cumbersome and completely takes you out of the experience. So... Right. October gave us another release that was part of the 35-year anniversary of Super Mario, another hated title called Super Mario Bros. 35. What was so hated about it? Well, it was a battle royale. So it was a Super Mario battle royale. How does that work? Well, you have 35 people in total that are trying to survive as long as possible throughout the same 2 levels of Super Mario Brothers. So the original Super Mario Brothers. The idea is the longer you survive, the harder it is for the other people to survive, because they're going to be spawning more and more enemies, more and more less coins, and it's going to start getting faster and faster. And in theory, it should be, you know, like all of the battle royales are supposed to be fun, quick games. According to the completionist, you can get stuck in a game for over 45 minutes, which is honestly not fun at all for anyone involved if you have to go through the same 2 levels for 45 fucking minutes. But yeah, that's also gonna disappear in at the end of March. Like, but properly disappear because they're gonna turn off its online mode, which basically means you won't be able to play it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like they panicked and realized they didn't have a lot of material prepared for like a major anniversary celebration during a pandemic when the audience would be really sizable. So they rushed out like some projects from the old Mario Vault and threw together a battle royale because those are cool, right?
Yeah.
And just said, yeah, here's a celebration. It's like the year of Luigi all over again.
Right.
Like, here's kind of sort of a new game that we were already working on and a handful of goodies.
Yeah. Basically, they did not give us almost anything for the 35th anniversary. Like, they did us they gave us a couple of nostalgia boosters and Paper Mario. Well, Paper Mario is okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But still, I would not say it was worthy of the 35-year mark.
See you in 5 more years, Mario.
Yeah. Another release that was quite surprising is Control, that got ported on the Switch. Honestly, that was one title that I did not expect to see on the Twitch, but it was a very well-known title when it came out. What was it? A year ago, I think.
A year or two, yeah.
Yeah, I got it for free on the Epic Game Store, and I gotta say I did not love it, but I liked it quite a lot. So, and it received quite a lot of good reviews, so I guess that one was a win for that month at least. Also a part of the 35-year anniversary for Mario was Mario Kart Live, because what do people like doing the most? Destroying their entire apartment to make tracks for the Mario Kart games. So basically, they did one innovative thing, and that was they merged the Super Mario game together with the AR capabilities, which means that you were building your own tracks, which could be fun, but you know, I can imagine that after a couple of rounds you would be bored from moving stuff left and right.
You ain't lived until you've seen Donkey Kong pulling donuts around the rim of a toilet.
Pokemon got another DLC that month, the Crown Tundra. Again, the same spiel. You get new gym leaders, new legendaries, new Pokemon, new area to explore. So that's about it. And one long-awaited game by everyone and their grandma came out, which is Pikmin 3 Deluxe. A cute game, which was unfortunately, again, not something new. It was basically remaster of the Pikmin 3 that came out on the Wii U, but since nobody has a Wii U or cares about Wii U, they decided to release it on the Switch and add a couple of more difficulty modes. So yeah, it was well received. Again, not super awesome, but people were okay with it. We're almost at the end. So November just brought us Just Dance 2021 and Just Sing 2021. I mean, people that like party games, that's for them. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, because we needed another spin-off of Kingdom Hearts. This time, a rhythm game, because of course Kingdom Hearts did not have a rhythm game yet, so there it is. I think Metacritic was a bit gentle and gave it an 80%, but yeah, I don't think anyone wanted this.
If some random series needs to have a dedicated rhythm game just based off of its extant soundtrack, you could do a lot worse than Kingdom Hearts. Like, the series has absolutely phenomenal composition and like sound production. courtesy of, I believe it's Yoko Shimomura.
Yeah. We have another big name coming up, which is Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity, a game that people did not expect to see because they were expecting Breath of the Wild 2. However, this game was actually confirmed to be canon, so it shows the events of pre-Calamity, so how the Calamity started and how it led to Breath of the Wild. Received 79% on Metacritic, and general opinion was that it has phenomenal combat, since it's basically a warriors game, and you know how they play. It's just a massive fights with shiny abilities and stuff. However, they did say that the game introduced quite a lot of questionable lore decisions. So the fans of the Breath of the Wild story were not super happy about some lore tidbits they found out through the game. And also, apparently, it had a lot of camera issues and closed spaces. So, yeah. That is one title that I'm waiting to pick up, probably when it goes on sale or, from eBay or something, because I don't want to pay the full price for it. And December, Ubisoft gave us a nice game called Immortals Phoenix Rising, which was not an exclusive on the Switch, but I decided to include it because people were quite hyped about it. And what they were hyped about the most is that it looked exactly like Breath of the Wilds, which is the second time we see that this year, considering there was this one nice game called Genshin Impact, which was, again, a complete ripoff of Breath of the Wild. This game, however, is Greek-inspired. It's an action-adventure. It's made by Ubisoft, so you can imagine how that is playing. And, yeah.
Probably better than Cyberpunk.
That's a really low bar there.
It's released by Ubisoft, so you've probably already played it about a dozen times in your life without even knowing it.
And considering it's another, let's call it a ripoff, of Breath of the Wild, you probably played that game called Breath of the Wild. Okay, that's about it when it comes to the Switch, because, as I said, not that many releases. Most were re-releases or ports. So now I'm just going to be moving to VR, a couple of games that are worth mentioning. Of course, the biggest release, the biggest name here we have is Half-Life Alyx, which was a game that nobody expected, but they were happy they got it. And it also is one further proof that Gaben doesn't really like the number 3, because this game is not a sequel of Half-Life 2, it's a pre-sequel. It's a game put in between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, technically making it a Half-Life 1.5. So it's still not a 3.
It's an in-betweenkle.
It's an in-betweenkle, yes.
Something like that.
The game was very well received, 93% on Metacritic. It won numerous awards, Game of the Year on the VR Awards, and the Best VR/AR game on the Game Awards. I've played it personally, I've played it on the stream, and I gotta say I was very pleasantly surprised how smooth it was running. It was really enjoyable to play. They even give you a couple of different methods of walking around, so you can reduce your motion sickness. And yeah, story-wise, it was all right. I mean, it was a shorter game, of course, since it is a VR game. The controls were very smooth, especially how you reload your guns and, how you handle them. The environment was pretty amazing. I honestly expected it to be more blocky, considering it is a VR game, and it was running on my Oculus Quest. But it looked like a AAA game on a console, to be honest. So I was very happy about that. A couple of more games to mention. Medal of Honor Above and Beyond came out for the VR. Again, like typical Medal of Honor game. It got very mixed reviews. People were not really super hyped about it. So yeah. However, there is one title that got funded on Kickstarter that people really love, and it's called Lo-Fi. It's the true cyberpunk game. So in cyberpunk environment, you're patrolling the streets and solving mysteries. Apparently, yeah, that's a thing. And also the Room VR, which is basically an investigation slash puzzle solving game, which looked pretty nice to me.
So not based on the Room that we're all thinking of right
now. No.
Disappointed.
Oh, hey, Mark.
I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hey, Mark.
It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Right. Thank you, Tommy. Passing to you, Potato.
Okay, so let us start from January. Not that many PC releases that are noteworthy. Some of them like Monster Hunter World Iceborne, which is an expansion for the base game. Yet still like not as usually there was recent like expansions go where they give you like a DLC or something. This one was almost the size of like the base game, which is nice and commendable. It had like a pretty decent reception, even on Metacritic and even by actual players. And not as good as on the console though, but still pretty good. There was a Dragon Ball Z game, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which has like decent reception, but people weren't happy that it doesn't have multiplayer. Right. Which for a game like that, okay, you have the story for Dragon Ball and everything, which is fine, but like anyone who's watched it knows most of the story. You kind of want to be able to fight against people.
Kinda.
Yeah, kinda, Despite all that, it was a commercial success. It was the third highest selling Dragon Ball franchise game, which is nice. The comments were just that it has good combat and story presentation, bad RPG elements. Which, since it's an RPG game, not that good. But the save the best of January for last. Warcraft 3 refunded. Sorry, my bad. Reforged. A game had 59 out of 100 on Metacritic by critics, which were, I'm completely certain, pandering to Blizzard as much as they could, because the user score, even now, is 0.6. It has about 30,000 ratings on Metacritic and by users, and the score is 0.6. Like the ones with comments, there's 13,500 negative ones. A quote from one of my more favorite ones: "I'd rather have paid to prevent them from releasing this." The game was so bad that Blizzard offered blanket refunds in February, regardless of playtime.
Nice.
Like, I'm sorry, here, have your money back. Please don't beat the shit out of me.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this, like, first off, it was part of a campaign that promised, like, extensive overhauls to the game and, like, the recreation of certain elements from the ground up. It provided none of these things, and did it actually run worse than the original, too?
Not only did it run worse, they removed a lot of stuff, like the original BattleNet, where you could play with people. They promised new cinematics, and then they said they decided not to put them in because they wanted to keep the feel of the original game.
What?
When, on the other hand, they've changed so much that they just completely destroyed any feel of the original game.
Well, they destroyed the original game, period, because they removed it.
Yeah. Like when they released StarCraft Remastered, they actually gave the original one for free.
Nice.
And you were able to play on the non-remaster version with people who had a remaster version. You just didn't have those nice little graphics and stuff.
Sure.
That was nice, but this was supposed to be a complete remake, and it was also a complete shit show.
It was a demake.
Wow.
Yeah, good one. But yeah, so that concludes January. Then we have February, which didn't have that many notable releases for the PC. At least not like from the stuff that I'm following. Oh, and Marcus says evolving just backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much. It did have, which is not like a notable release. It's a fun little game called Boris and the Dark Survival. I don't know if you've seen the game. It's just the character that you're playing looks so much like Goofy. Is the reason why I had to note the game. And it's a horror survival game.
Oh my god! Okay.
Yeah, it's like a side prequel to a game you might have heard of, Bendy and the Ink
Ah,
Machine.
yeah.
Yeah, and like you're trying to survive while the ink demon Bendy is trying to kill you.
Right.
And it's got super positive reviews, and I think you can even get it on your phone if you have Android or iOS. So check it out if you want to play Goofy in a horror game. I don't think there was anything like especially other than that for Windows on in February. Maybe like One Punch Man, a game, sort of. Yeah, it's not special. In March, well, I'm gonna skip Half-Life Alyx since you already covered it. Black Mesa came out, which is a remake, a third-party remake of the first Half-Life game.
Nice.
Yeah, which was like it initially came out as a free mod in 2012, and it was given an approval was given to the creators of the mod by Valve to make a commercial release, which is pretty nice. And I'm sure, even though people couldn't get Half-Life 3, they were happy getting a better first one.
Half-Life 2, Half-Life 1 Part 2.
No, Half-Life 1 repeat. Rerun.
We are never gonna see Half-Life 3.
Sure we are. Someday. Far away. Something I also had to mention in March, a new Yu-Gi-Oh game.
Woo!
Legacy of the Duelist Link Evolution, which just added like the new rulings where you have like Link monsters and a bunch of new cards and stuff. It had good reviews. I just like it doesn't have it doesn't have much.
Doesn't have a lot of depth.
Yeah, it doesn't have the spirit of playing live.
Right.
And you still have to like have a pain in the ass to collect all the cards. And like, yeah, enough said. April we have a remake of Resident Evil 3, which sounds great, but the game was actually felt really shallow and felt rushed. Had not that nice user reviews. Well, the critics, of course, weren't that critical of it.
As usual.
Yeah, because as soon as it's a big studio, you have to be careful what you're saying. Well, as they might not let you try out their new game. There was a game called Cloudpunk, which had like a cyberpunk aesthetic with much worse graphics, but even though it was a really small game, it's an indie game, and it was probably much better made than Cyberpunk.
Probably.
You actually have dialogue choices and like game choices that affect
the game,
the story.
No way.
Not just the ending. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought? There was a game by I believe Team 17 called Moving Out, which is a physics-based moving simulator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like you've played Overcooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, except you're just helping people move.
Right.
It's a fun little game, a little casual. Except the controls are terrible, and most of the difficulty of the game is just controls.
Right.
It's like
unless they fixed it. I haven't played the game, actually. I've seen it. I like it, but most people are just complaining about the controls. We're coming up to May. There was a release of Deep Rock Galactic, which is like a first-person shooter where you're like, I guess, dungeon crawling through some cave systems. It's like 1 to 5 player co-op.
Yeah.
Procedurally generated, which is nice because gives more replayability. It was well received, and well, sounds like a, I don't know, space Left 4 Dead or something like that, which is nice. There were releases of Mafia 2 and 3 definitive editions, which is basically just a remaster. But the nice thing is, if you had the original ones on Steam, you got a free upgrade.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Kind of like Skyrim when it came out.
Which time?
Yeah, I was just about to ask the same. Like, which time and on which console? Oh yeah, all of them. Then we have Cannibal Cuisine, which is a cooking simulator.
Delicious.
Similar to Overcooked, except you are like islander cannibal chefs who are serving tourists to their god. And the tourists don't always end up as food willingly. So that's a nice little concept of just making a bloody and gory Overcooked, I guess.
Yeah.
It also sounds kind of racist.
A little bit, yeah.
Why?
Like the stereotype of like a savage cannibal islander like preying on civilized people. In reality, to the best of my knowledge, there's very, very, very few like societies based on or around islands that practice regular cannibalism. It's like part of an old imperial trope. You see the same thing applied to colonized peoples the world over, but it's like, yeah, like it sounds like an Overcooked style game. Sounds cute. The idea of like turning it really, really dark sounds cute, but that has some slightly off cultural implications. That I'm just the ethno historian here. So,
but the thing, even though it's called Cannibal Cuisine, you're not actually feeding it to other like people. You're feeding it to like your god.
Yeah.
There's like a god spirit thingy that shows up and asks you for a certain recipe.
Okay.
So technically, you're not feeding people to people,
but you're cooking them,
which is sort of like false advertisement.
Should we sue them?
Form a class action. Yeah, we should. Well, I mean, come on, if Blizzard didn't get sued for Warcraft Reforged,
that's because I don't think
CD Projekt Red a break.
It didn't upset any of their investors badly enough.
Yeah, they were all like,
Warcraft, WoW is earning enough money to cover this. Yeah, just give them refunds and fuck them all.
Basically.
What's the matter? Don't you guys have phones? Then, still in May, we have the release of a Man-Eater, where you play as a baby shark that is trying to get revenge on a shark hunter called Scaly Pete. As ridiculous as it sounds, I guess it's an innovative concept of a game. And it was quite well received, having like a 70 out of 100 Metacritic score. And we have Saints Row 3 Remastered, which it's like, it's like GTA except sillier, which is always nice. In June, we have the release of Valorant, which sort of, even though it was well received and super popular on Twitch with a lot of like viewers. I think at one point it was the second most watched game on Twitch. There was a bit of controversy about it because of its anti-cheat software. Because it was kernel based and allows like complete access to your computer system, which did not go well considering the owner of Riot Games is Tencent, a Chinese company.
Yeah.
A lot of mistrust. And I mean, even if it was a like European, American, any company, I'm not trusting them to just not snoop around on my system. I mean, Blizzard even did that with their I don't remember what it was called. I think like Watcher or something, where they had like complete access to your system to check for cheats. And it's like, yo, I'm just gonna check for cheats. Trust me, I'm not gonna do anything shady.
Yep.
Says a multi-million-dollar company.
That's how they found out you guys have phones.
Ah.
Oh my god.
Advanced consumer research.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We also have a Command and Conquer Remastered Collection with like the first two titles with 4K graphics, remastered music, full motion video capture cinematics, and added mod support, which is always nice. There was I think a Persona 4 release for PC.
Yeah.
Nice.
With some like additional features such as like Japanese voiceovers and some graphical enhancements. Then coming over to July, we have a pretty big release of Death Stranding.
Oh yeah.
Which is like a post-apocalyptic game where you're like a delivery driver where a bunch of people are just not coming out of their homes.
It's basically the biggest game about nothing.
So unrealistic. Like, why would people just not come out of their homes? I mean, I don't get it. Real positive reviews and like even critic and user based. Then we have like one of my favorite games from my childhood, Destroy All Humans.
Nice.
Yes.
And it came for a PC, which is also nice because the original only came out for I think it was on PlayStation. Yeah, on PlayStation 2.
PlayStation and maybe Xbox.
Oh well, that's irrelevant.
I don't know. Well, yes, of course, but you're right. You're right. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I just love it. Like you're an alien just conquering the world and kidnapping people and just. I think is it the second one where you're the president of the U.S.?
Yes, no. So the first one is based in and heavily lampoons like America circa 1956. It's like this great big parody of like U.S. Socio-political culture at the time. The second game is set in the 60s and sees you travel all around the world from the west coast of the U.S. to locales such as the U.K., Japan, and the Soviet Union. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I just like, I mean that game was great. Even had multiplayer.
Yeah,
I mean local multiplayer, but for PS2 era
that was pretty good. Yeah.
Great. Yeah,
I've been playing through the second one on PS4, and let me tell you, all these years later, those still hold up like the original releases.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I still come back to some PS1 games and just play them for fun, even though I've beaten them several times. And you know that's a good game, which you can come back to, and you don't care if it's a bad graphics because the stories and the gameplay is so good. Let's see what else. Oh, I think this is one of Brady's favorite games, Hellpoint. Or I might be wrong. I don't know.
No, it might not have loaded yet, so wait to be sure.
Yeah, it did not get that nice reviews. Like PC had, I think, 64 on Metacritic, which
it's barely above average.
Yeah,
that's pretty fair, honestly. Maybe a little low, but that's about it.
Even had worse on PS4.
Gee, I wonder why.
I don't know.
That was the edition that just straight up didn't have the final boss's textures like loading at first, so you were fighting this massive void.
You're fighting your own darkness.
Yeah. Then we're coming to August with a release of Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout.
Oh yeah.
Which I've played it on the PS4. However, I doubt it's much different from the PC version. It's so fucking frustrating. I hate the game. I still play it. I hate the fucking shit out of it. It's so fucking annoying, but I still play because I want to win at least once.
Did you win at least once?
I rarely. No, I still play it. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna stop if I ever win, but Oh. Do you know when something annoys you so much? Like you're just at the finish line and someone takes the last free spot, and
Yep.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it's a fun little game and super popular to watch because I think just people want to watch other people rage.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder why. Then we have the release of Horizon Zero Dawn on the PC, which is originally a PlayStation exclusive. Uh, which is, I guess, part of Sony's plan to release more of their first party games on PC, because that's Sony Interactive Entertainment game. And it's a fun game. It's like mechanical beasts, dinosaurs, and stuff. Who's what's not to like?
Yeah.
We have Risk of Rain 2. I don't know if you've played that. It's like it's not that much of a roguelike in terms the levels are completely random.
Right.
It's just like certain parts of the levels are randomized where stuff is. Upgrades, you get a bunch of it's in that part it's a roguelike, random upgrades, random enemies and stuff like that.
Right.
Super fun. The first one is like a 2D side scroller, whereas the second one was made like fully 3D.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, it's not like we just slightly remade our first game. It's like
Really?
almost a complete remake. Yeah. What do we have? A new Total War game. Total War Saga Troy. I'm not really a strategy person.
I've heard it's okay.
Well, people who love the Total War games, it's gonna be great. To people that like strategies, probably gonna be great. Then we have Factorio, which is like a construction and management sim. I mean, the game has been in early access for years. It was just fully released in August. And like I've played the game a little bit on my friend's PC. It's sort of fun, not my style. It's it looks like quite easily overwhelming. A lot of macro management. Then we had one of the bigger releases, Flight Simulator, which is just a huge ass game with, I don't know, not much to do. Flying a plane.
Yeah.
But, had its fair share of like weird, quirky bugs, like the random monoliths and the random giant holes in the earth where you can actually land. There was a Souls-like, Mortal Shell.
Yes.
Which I don't believe Seth ever finished. Just saying.
It's in the backlog. It's in the backlog. As someone who's completed it, I'll say it's fantastic and easily one of the better Souls-likes we've seen this year. We've actually gotten a lot of high-quality Souls-likes, something I'm very happy about.
Yeah. Then we have a something really fun, Samurai Jack game, Battle Through Time, which anyone who's watched the show on Adult Swim will probably like, and who hasn't watched the show should go and fucking watch it right now.
Or else.
No, or else Seth is gonna do squats.
Why me?
I don't know. I'm not gonna do it. We had a release of a sequel for Surgeon Simulator 2, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows about it. Just like super quirky and difficult controls, which is, I think, like the most of the appeal of the game. Because if that was easy, the game would not be fun at all. Yeah, like one of the games where you actually like the controls to be annoying. Well, difficult.
Yeah.
I guess annoying would be a bad choice of words. Then we come over to September with a pretty big release of a really fun game Crusader Kings 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With so many improvements over the second game. And it's just like, I don't like strategies, but the grand strategy genre of games, especially made by Paradox Interactive, is some of my favorite games. Especially like such a serious but silly game like Crusader Kings, where marry a horse or a random hellhole opens up in your kingdom, and you have to decide if you want to throw a bunch of sheep in there, throw a bunch of rocks, or throw your firstborn, and maybe it will close up.
I like those choices.
Yeah, I'm not like even joking. It's actually one of the events in the game. Then we come back to a bit of a Dumpsterfire release of a game, Marvel's Avengers.
No.
Yeah, prepare your barf bags, people. I don't think I need to mention much about the game. Pretty much everybody's read something about it, and probably nothing good. Like, the controls were terrible, especially the Iron Man ones, right?
I would actually argue that Thor is somehow even worse.
Of course. Then we have the I think the third remake of the Tony Hawk games, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. I think it's the third remake already. They just like decided we're not gonna be making new ones, we're just gonna keep remaking the old ones.
Until Tony Hawk dies eventually.
Yeah, you know what the funny thing is? Like, people barely recognize him in public. It's so hilarious because it's like, oh, you know who you look like? You look like that Tony Hawk dude. I wonder what he's doing right now. And he's like, that's me. No, you're not. There was a story I read where he went for a what's it called? Yeah, the COVID test with his children, and the doctor was like reading their names and like read, and I don't know what his children's names are, and like Anthony Hawk. She's like, "Oh, are you related to Tony Hawk?" And he was like, "Yes, we are actually directly related to him."
Poor dude.
I mean, okay, that's one is sort of understandable because I assume they were wearing masks.
Sure.
But still.
No, it's like, this is what happens when you represent a very specific, like, sporting subculture that, like a lot of things in broader pop culture, seem to flourish exclusively in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, once we hit 2005, okay, thank you, we're done.
Yeah. Oh, then we have one of Brady's also favorite games, Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning.
It's okay. Like,
it's okay.
I meant more like story-wise, but about the game, not the actual game story. Then we have, I believe Seth already covered it, but I'll just mention it. Hades, since it also came out for the Windows. There was a, I do believe, re-release, well, a remaster of the Crysis game, because we needed a new game to benchmark our PCs by.
Yeah.
Kenneth Crysis and Kenneth Crysis Remastered. Yeah, I mean, it was getting old, and people were able to make cheap PCs that could run Crysis, so we had to fix that.
We needed to have fresh memes.
Yeah, exactly. There was a release of the Mafia Definitive Edition. There was Genshin Impact, which released pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Even on the phones. So, just
why not
release everything? Yeah, like, why not? Why? Wherever you can charge money, do it.
Yep.
Well, I reckon the phones are where they earn the most money.
Definitely.
It's a game you can just play for a little while in, a short time. And that's pretty much best on the phones.
Yep.
And you're like, oh yeah, I need this little skin upgrade. I don't know. I'll just, $2 ain't much.
Also, best of my knowledge, monetization with gacha type games tends to be most effective across the board on phones. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I think it's not. Yeah, I think you're right. Then we're in October with games such as Torchlight 3, which was also not a very good game.
Yeah.
Like compared to the other Torchlight games and just compared to a standard you're expecting from like an established studio and an established franchise, really lackluster. Then we have Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition,
Oh.
which is also like I'm not a fan of, like I said, strategies, but I did enjoy playing Age of Empires 2 as a child, and I will always install a game like that and just play a little and
Same here.
suck a lot. Uh, but yeah, it's not bad. We had a release of Amnesia Rebirth, which is a nice little horror game, third part of the Amnesia franchise. It had, I believe, a relatively decent reception by the player base, even the critics. 81 on Metacritic.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
For a game like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, are they still considered like indie games at this point? I mean, they're
Oh geez, I don't know. I think they kind of occupy, in my mind at least, that weird liminal space between like a small scale indie title and like AAA. What back in the day would be like a mid shelf game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it for October for like the bigger releases. And then we come to November, which has so many new games for all the different like platforms. So we're not gonna mention too many of them. There was a new Yakuza game, Like a Dragon, which was extremely well received. It was also got a award for excellence in the future division from Japan Game Awards. It was let me see, Game Awards 2020 Best RPG. It was a nomination, though, however, and a nomination for the Ultimate Game of the Year at the Golden Joystick Awards. But it was a really good game. And then we have, let me see, just need to go on to the next paper. Of course, a new Call of Duty game, because we need more of those.
Are there people shooting each other in that Call of Duty game? Because they're really missing
You're
that.
not gonna believe this. Yes, they are.
Is it war related?
No, actually, no. It's a completely pacifist game. Yeah.
I wonder if one day they have to make a Call of Duty game that started in like a bar fight.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, at least it would be something new. Then we have, again, one of the bigger releases, World of Warcraft Shadowlands.
Yep.
An expansion for the World of Warcraft MMO, which I do play.
A lot.
I like it so far. Not that much, come on. But I like it so far. Except it feels so time-gated. And it's not like there's different parts differently time-gated. No, there's one part time-gated, and everything else is just locked behind that. So basically, if you want to be like a fully casual player, you could go do most of the stuff in like 3 hours in one day and play maybe 15 minutes a day or like 1 hour every couple of days, and you will not be behind anyone. Also, you could skip like 2 weeks and still not be behind anyone. which is nice. I just feel like if I have 12 hours to kill one day a month, I would like to have content for those 12 hours. Not that I would play a single game for 12 hours. That's not me. I would never. Anyways,
moving on.
I'll just carry on to December. There is something that I've just discovered while researching because I would have already played it if I knew earlier. There was a Sam and Max Save the World remaster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the season 1 was like completely remastered by a small team of like original Telltale developers that made their own studio. Yeah, and they are currently like the caretakers of the Sam and Max franchise. They're called Skunk Ape Games, which is like sort of a play on the name of the I think third season villain, Skunkape, which is an ape.
That's a name, yeah.
No, an
ape. I heard you say that's a name. Yeah.
Well, you heard wrong, and anyone else who heard it heard wrong.
Also,
it is also a name. Yes. God damn it, Brady.
This is the over-analysis y'all are signing up for, mind.
Oh, God. What have we signed up for? Oh, my God. There was a release of a Dumpsterfire, of Cyberpunk 2077. Just like not as terrible on the PC as it was on the consoles, though terrible it was.
Yikes!
Just like, yeah, I mean, I've played it on a like my PC is fairly strong except the GPU, which is 6 years old or 7 at this point. But it's handled it pretty well with some like I played with dynamic graphics. So I have experienced a couple of moments of those PS4 graphics. Right. Or maybe it should be called PS2 graphics. And a lot of crashes, which like bugs and graphics issues I can handle. A crash which makes me repeat like 3/4 of a quest, not nice.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm sure Brady's gonna have a few choice words about that, so I can carry on. There was a release of Super Meat Boy Forever, which is a sequel to the first one. A little bit different. They changed the controls a little bit, and they also made the levels sort of like procedurally generated, randomly generated, based on the player's skill level.
Oh wow! Okay.
They have like pre-made chunks which they use to make the levels, which is kind of I don't know how I feel about it because I like the first game. It was like a singular difficulty experience, where you're either good or not like, oh, I got lucky so I got a little bit of better level, but okay, sure. And it wasn't that well received. I can sort of understand why people were expecting like just a sequel to the first game. But like the funny part to me is the characters. And this time, instead of Meat Boy's girlfriend, Bandage Girl, yes, you heard it right, being kidnapped by the evil Dr. Fetus. And yes, you heard that right. It's their child that's been kidnapped by Dr. Fetus. And the child is called Nugget.
Oh, joy.
No comment.
Let's just say that's it for the PC ones.
Well, there was a lot of releases on the PC, but I think most of them can be summarized with people were waiting for this, but it kind of sucked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's because it's just because of the quarantine, because people were expecting... people wouldn't be that disappointed if they had something else to do. If you could, oh, this game sucks, I'm gonna go have a beer with my friends.
Yeah, sure. And it also sounds like there were a lot of hidden gems or little indie games that fared insanely well for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, Hades, holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's always nicer when you don't have like any hype or any expectation, and you're just like, oh well, I'll just try this probably shitty game, and then, oh wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So any more comments on the PC or?
Like all in all, not a bad year. It's sort of like opened with a dumpster fire in January and closed with another one in December. So it all fell into place.
But like somewhere in between, you could like roast a couple of marshmallows on the dumpster fire, so it was fine.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Made some very nice memes, so
Yeah.
All right. Then I suppose it's down to me to give you a rundown of the console, which is to say largely AAA garbage space for this year. Overall, I have to say mine is not organized month by month. I've got like kind of general sections for each console.
Yeah.
And then a few major points I would like to hit on. But really quickly, I'd like to say that this has not been as bad of a year for the major consoles as one may have expected, right? Because something that's been a pretty persistent theme throughout the past couple of console generations is obviously as one generation of consoles releases and needs to quickly gain support from both first and third-party developers, the last generation tends to fall off pretty quickly in terms of getting these real eye-catching games. And we've not seen quite so much of that, I think largely due to the relatively minute technical differences between, say, PlayStation 4 and 5 or Xbox One and Series X that allow for comparatively easy porting. For instance, you could not feasibly port anything from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3. You would need to develop two entirely different games. And while the coronavirus outbreak did substantially derail many projects' development, thanks to like tireless, largely selfless hard work in many cases, or like foolhardy administrators rushing games long before they're ready, a lot of projects did ultimately meet their release dates. Going to start really quickly with some of the PlayStation 4 and 5, like at the very least timed exclusives. Remember, a lot of these will eventually come to PC or Xbox. Several of these already have come to PC, so you'll be familiar with them. This is not for me, but apparently it did quite well. Early on in the year, in February, there was a port of a fighting game released for PC in 2019 called Grand Blue Fantasy Versus by a dev team called Arc System Works. It has a 2D art style, looks quite nice to be honest, and has received pretty substantial support post-launch with the addition of scores of extra characters and things like that. I think it may have some kind of monetization component, so I'd stay away. Speaking of fighting games with excessive monetization that you should stay the hell away from, PS4 also saw the release of Street Fighter V's Champion Edition in mid-February. If any of you remember the initial launch of Street Fighter V, it was another one of those kind of dumpster fires where the game was released with relatively little content compared to earlier entries, and a butt ton of monetization. Yes, for a full $60 or €60 release. Now, to be perfectly fair, and again, I'm not a fighting game guy beyond like Smash, apparently the addition of scores of new modes and characters, features in general post-launch, has turned Street Fighter V into a still rather exploitative, but apparently fairly robust experience. A lot of people who play it now say it's quite good, it could be worth your time. I don't have a personal perspective on that, but it sounds like if you want to purchase the game, the Champion Edition would be the way to go because it incorporates all the content that had been released as of early 2020. If you're interested in the PlayStation VR, which some of you may or may not have, you may not know it, been a while since we've used it, check around your house for like door stops or paperweights. One of those might be the PSVR. There was an Iron Man VR game released by Camouflage Studios in July, and by all accounts, as like PSVR games go, it's really good. Not particularly deep, but a fun time that nonetheless feels a bit like Iron Man. and apparently has an Iron Man that controls better than Marvel's Avengers version does. Oh man, couldn't go through PlayStation without discussing this. Early March, the Final Fantasy VII Remake's first installment hitting. Oh my god. Now, I have not played the game myself. I have it loaded, but I just have such a significant backlog. But obviously, it was received extremely warmly by critics and fans alike, with the exception of some fans who took umbrage to the fact that the game is being released in multiple parts, not like an episodic game, mind you, but like several, or at least two, full-scale, full-price releases, I think. The game looks gorgeous. By all accounts, it plays very well with kind of this midpoint between traditional active time battle and an action RPG, more conventional, like, dynamic combat system. And the soundtrack is, as always, absolutely phenomenal. If you want to just, like, kick back and watch something really, really impressive as far as, like, AAA games go, find yourself a complete playthrough of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It is good stuff. We also, just a week later, got Nioh 2 from Team Ninja, the sequel to the extremely successful and beloved Sengoku-era Souls-like, which incorporates a great deal of Japanese mythology and extremely fast-paced, like, very, very tense combat, which you can catch an ongoing playthrough of right here on Seph's channel on Twitch. And Nioh 2 is a game I do have first-hand experience with. It's a fantastic time that allows for, unlike the first game, completely autonomous character creation. You can, like, make whatever avatar you wish. It added in a handful of new gameplay features, such as replacing the living weapon with one of a number of yokai transformations that are based around certain playstyles, and incorporated far, far more content than the first game did at launch, with a campaign that will take you probably several days at the least to slug your way through, a handful of brand new weapons and skill trees that weren't present in the original, refined magic systems, and most importantly for this discussion, a trinity of short episodic DLC packs that were released throughout the year. So, like, it's gotten, you know, one main release and then 3 DLC out in about 9 months. That's pretty substantial. The DLC have received a variety of responses. The first two, based on what I understand, have been received quite well by critics and fans. The third one feels a little more superfluous, ostensibly. Like, it doesn't offer quite as much content or quite as much that's new, but they're all a good time on the whole, is kind of what I'm gathering. I did play the base game. I've not played the DLC, but I can tell you, just based off of, like, the core release, Nioh 2 is absolutely worth your time. It is one of the best games of 2020, in my opinion, and one of them that feels most complete right out of the box. Excellent stuff. Team Ninja's done phenomenal work. We did get a PS4 port of Persona 5 Royal, released March 31st, released last year in Japan, but we got it on several systems here in the US early in the year, and of course, everybody loves it, right? It's Persona. It's a deep, complex RPG that also incorporates some phenomenal writing and character development through its main plot and social link system. I've really got to get around to finishing Persona 3 so I can play Persona 4 and then play this one, but god damn it, I've got such a huge backlog.
Yeah.
But Persona 5 Royal, people love it. It adds some additional social links, new mechanics, some new story elements. Pretty much the analog to Persona 4's Golden Edition or Persona 3's For Everyone's Souls Edition, like kind of a final mix cut. Oh man, this was a huge one. Naughty Dog hitting us in mid-June with The Last of Us Part 2. A critical and commercial darling, the sequel to the initial, like, undead survival horror game from, I want to say, was it 2015 or 2016? No, maybe like 2014. It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a long while. The game was received quite well by fans and critics alike. It provided more of the same, like a perfectly workable, if not terribly intricate, combat and crafting system that really served as support for a deep, dark, kind of gritty story, principally about like character and development. I will be the first to say The Last of Us and the entire like post-apocalyptic, dim, gritty, grungy zombie survival like milieu, what I would call misery porn, that was really, really popular in mass media in the late 2000s, early 2010s, is not for me. But I recognize that this game is of obscenely high quality, yep. And if it's something that sounds appealing to you, if these are the types of games or the types of stories you like, by all accounts, Last of Us Part 2 delivers everything that the original could have and more. It's good stuff. A bit more, like in my wheelhouse, mid-July, Sucker Punch Studios, or Sucker Punch Productions, the company behind both Sly Cooper, one of my favorite franchises from childhood, and the exceptional Infamous trilogy, released Ghost of Tsushima, an open-world stealth combat game based during one of the many, or handful, I should say, of Mongolian invasions of Japan's outlying islands. You play a samurai who also learns the way of like stealthy combat and subterfuge, kind of like treading a middle ground between like the traditional samurai and ninja. And while I've not played hardly any of it myself, I've seen just enough of the game from like demos, reviews, things like that, to say if you want an open world game, basically if you want a Ubisoft game but don't want that one Ubisoft game that they release under 3 or 4 different titles a few times a year, check out Ghost of Tsushima. It seems like it's a little deeper. It seems like, well, it's far more like intentionally crafted when it comes to environments, when it comes to story. It just seems like that type of game. You know what I mean? The big open world sandbox with a bunch of little rote tasks to complete and boxes to tick. Done just a bit better. Sucker Punch has always turned out really good stuff, and this seems to be no exception. Now, stretched across both a PS4 and PS5 release, there's a really interesting little indie title published by Annapurna Interactive, but developed by a studio called Giant Squid. That's always fun. Gotta love a giant squid. Called The Pathless, which seems to be this incredibly atmospheric action-adventure game that borrows heavily from types of like visual and aesthetic motifs that we're not used to seeing in gaming. I want to say there's like some vague like Tibetan or Indian influences there, but I can't say for certain. I've not seen enough of the game, and I'm not an art historian, so I could be totally off base. But the point is, the game looks amazing. Its soundtrack is atmospheric and immersive. It looks like something I want to pick up and stream. It looks very, very, very good. That's everything significantly that like the PS4 saw exclusively that I've not saved for later. What about Xbox? What kind of year did Xbox have? Well, shit. Honestly, I'm not an Xbox guy. I don't think like any of us are particularly plugged into that milieu. But it sounds to me like Xbox didn't have that many substantial releases or exclusives this year, because Matt Booty and his Xbox Game Studios are like trying to rally the troops to produce really high quality like second party games with their recent acquisitions. I'm talking Bethesda, I'm talking Tim Schafer's Double Fine, I'm talking Obsidian Entertainment, like next year, because there's a lot of projects in the works, some of which I'm very excited about. They didn't do very much this year. Basically, if you don't like the same 2 or 3 franchises that Xbox gives you every year, you know, your Gears of Wars, your Halos, your Forzas, they don't have a lot to offer you that other platforms couldn't, especially since as a Microsoft managed platform, just about everything that's on Xbox is also on PC, and then some. But we did have a couple things that were worth pointing out, I suppose. Many of these are Xbox Series X launch titles, by the way, so I'm kind of transitioning into next-gen stuff. There was this very interesting little title called Bright Memory, apparently a dynamic, very, very action-heavy shooter published by an independent developer called FYQI Personal Studio out of China. Looks very nice. Released as like the first installment of an episodic series on November 10th, so I believe it was a launch title for the Series X, but they are turning it into a full, totally holistic game for release on the console early next year. And anybody who purchased the singular episode they have now, I guess kind of as a demo, will be upgraded to the full version completely free of charge. That sounds awesome. Looks like a pretty good game, to be perfectly honest. There was, oh yeah, this was a major hit for Xbox, relatively speaking. Obsidian leaving their wheelhouse and producing kind of a multiplayer open world game based around survival and exploration in a world where players were like the size of ants, called Grounded.
Oh yeah.
Which released in early access in late July. It's not yet to see a full final release, but it looks, very charming, I have to say.
Yeah, I played it a little bit. It's really charming, but it doesn't have that much content yet, so...
Do you think it's on track to be well worth a full purchase when it's out of early access?
I think so, because I think the price right now is like $20 or something like that. So already for that price, I think it's pretty good.
Right on. Yeah, no, what I've seen looks adorable. Really quick, I do want to point out that one thing that's very, very admirable about the way that Xbox has managed a lot of their studios and partners this year is, and I know this isn't going to be great for people who pre-ordered a Series X, like all three of them, but a lot of their like system selling titles that were planned for launch have been postponed until 2021. And what I like about that is it shows a rather like humane reaction to the pandemic, and that these studios are saying, hey, now let's let everybody take their time and release this project with a time schedule that's suitable by and large, or at least that's feasible, and that will allow us to release something that's as good as it can be. And this year, if anything, should have taught us the folly of rushing projects, no matter what the potential cost may be. So, for instance, 343 Industries' Halo Infinite, which I understand is to be kind of like a soft reboot of the Halo series, and by all accounts looks amazing, has been delayed until 2021, as has this very interesting third-person horror game called The Medium, developed by Bloober Team, and featuring, I want to say, some sound design from individuals who composed for or otherwise worked on Silent Hill. It looks quite interesting. That's been delayed until 21. But don't worry, kids. Your Xbox Series X, at the very least, landed one awesome launch title. We have the first ever console port of Tetris Effect Connected.
Nice.
Nice.
Now, Tetris Effect is a game that had been available on PC and I think iOS for quite some time, but this is like the connected version. So go ahead, give us those $500. I joke, but there are a lot of really, really cool looking games in the pipeline for Xbox. Among them, just a couple I pointed out. Oh, sorry. Earlier this year, too, as a launch title for the Series X, we got a port of the PC game Gears Tactics, set in the Gears of War universe. It's kind of like a vaguely XCOM-y thing, I think. And by all accounts, it's quite good. It's one of the handful of times Gears of War has tried to devolve or diverge from its extremely homogenous style of presentation, which is like, this big, over-the-top, hyper-masculine action movie thing they've got going. And it seems to have gone over reasonably well. But, man, oh man, they've got one really, really exciting game in the pipeline. This betrays my own personal biases, but, they have a game called Avowed. Have you guys heard of this?
Actually, nope. Yeah.
It is a first-person, open-world RPG set in the spellbinding universe of Pillars of Eternity, one of my favorite properties of the past couple generations. By Obsidian Entertainment. My god, it sounds amazing. I adored Pillars of Eternity 1. It was the first, old-school style CRPG that really, really hooked me, and I really need to go through and play the second. I've done just a little bit, but they're amazing. Great world, great characters, great story across the board. If you want quality storytelling right now, you could wait a couple of years until Cyberpunk's almost done, or you could pick up, the Pillars of Eternity duology, with all their DLC included pretty cheaply on a platform of your choice. So that's Xbox. It seems like on the whole, as far as exclusives go, or like timed exclusives, they also had Wasteland, I think, earlier this year, Wasteland 3. Um, they're kind of biding their time to allow these studios that they've recently acquired to really leverage all of their weight. Once you have Obsidian producing titles for you exclusively regularly, once you have Tim Schafer with the might of a fully funded team behind him producing titles regularly, once you, I suppose, finally light a fire under Bethesda's ass and tell them to make a second game already, you'll be able to produce, I think, some pretty diverse and really high quality content fairly regularly. So I don't see that much promise for like Xbox right now, but the future for the platform, honestly, as an observer, looks really, really, really good. I'm excited. I may end up having to pony up for Series X, which I don't want to, but may have to. Oh, shoot, I totally forgot, guys. Do you remember Dreams?
No?
It was the latest project by Media Molecule, the Sony, like, kind of second-party darlings behind Little Big Planet, and, a couple of karting games, Mod Nation Racers and, Little Big Planet Karting. They are like the delightful little scrapbooking grandmothers of Sony's coalition, because all of their games are based around like the simple joy of creativity and sharing one's mind, one's artistic essence with others in these really like really sweet, usually clearly handcrafted locales and settings. They also did a Tearaway, a great game originally released for the Vita. Dreams is a game that is based around allowing anybody to create games of their preferred type or short animations or songs like that, and then just share them through the platform with others using a suite of fairly easy to learn tools. So you've got lots of people making things like Dark Souls homages or recreations of stages from Super Mario or Cuphead or things like that, but also some completely original, fairly decently thought out titles being released exclusively through Dreams, which is just this cute little creative sandbox. It's good stuff on the whole, and it had been in early access for quite some time, and I believe released fully rather ignominiously toward the start of the year. I've played around with Dreams, like its main campaign that's kind of intended just to show you what all the game can do, which takes the form of, I want to say, a simple platformer, a like top-down kind of puzzle game, and a point-and-click adventure all interwoven. I gotcha. And it's really good stuff. Dreams is a great platform for people to play around with, I think. Okay, what else do I have before we wrap things up here? Oh yeah, so just as Xbox Series X didn't have much going for it immediately at launch, or Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5 came out with a pretty solid but shallow pool of titles. We had Astro's Playroom, the in-house like free little tech demo platformer that people seem to adore. We have Spider-Man Miles Morales from Insomniac, which is a follow-up to the last really great Marvel game we got. We have Sackboy, a big adventure, a platformer based in the Little Big Planet universe, published or developed by Sumo Digital, and of course From Software's phenomenal Demon Souls remake, which is like, to my understanding, the system seller right now. There's also a little indie title based around exploration and gathering items called Bug Snacks by a studio called Young Horses that is apparently quite popular. And one thing I do appreciate seeing both from Xbox and PlayStation this generation is these major studios are relying on indie partners to kind of pick up the weight and sell consoles. That's really cool. And some of their games have been receiving a lot of publicity and doing quite well. On that note, indies have just done really well this year across the board. We've seen a great deal of, in particular, indie Souls-likes flourishing in the console space. Mortal Shell. I want to say Fallen Angel, a beautiful game I completed just a couple days ago that is well worth your time and money. May have gotten like some console ports. We got DLC for Blasphemous. We got even Hellpoint. Sure, Hellpoint is worth a mention here. Yeah, sure, it's fine. 5 people made it. That's about right. It was a great year overall for like indie developers in terms of visibility and in terms of critical reception, especially on consoles. That's a really encouraging thing to see because their success opens the doors to some phenomenal things in future. We also had Yakuza Like a Dragon, which I would love to be able to comment on, but I have not played myself because I am like, I've got to finish Yakuza 2, then 3, 4, or 3, then 4, 5, 6, and so on. But it looks amazing, and if I had played it, no doubt it would be my game of the year. Some concluding thoughts from me, very, very quickly. Marvel's Avengers is one of the more notorious releases of the year, like on console or PC. But here's the thing. Almost everyone knew it was going to be terrible before it was released.
Yep.
It's a confusing, if fairly like well presented beat 'em up with drop-in, drop-out multiplayer, rampant monetization, and an absolute dearth of enemies or villains. There's like 3 or 4 super villains in the entire game, and you only fight like 3 of them, which is bleh. Like, I hope you like punching crash test dummies, otherwise Avengers is going to be a very bad time for you. They've promised additional content post-launch, but it just sounds like more dungeons set in the same or very similar tile sets with the same enemies, and nobody sees Avengers pulling it out because Avengers did so terribly and everybody knew it was going to be terrible because, like, people would go bonkers over an Avengers game, but not as a Destiny-esque live service. Yep. But Avengers didn't disappoint me. I played through it on stream, and it sucked, and it was boring, and I kind of hated it. But you know what? It didn't disappoint me. I knew all of that was going to be the case. Unlike Cyberpunk 2077, which I will contend is the worst release of 2020, bar none. Released amidst a absolutely cataclysmic backdrop of employee abuse, excessive crunch, misleading reviewers, and to the point of even injuring a reviewer with a sequence that could induce epileptic seizures unintentionally. Cyberpunk was a complete dumpster fire. Like, CDPR were really burning the midnight trash because, okay, the bugs were terrible, the crashes are terrible, all that. When you get down into Cyberpunk, what makes it so fucking terrible is the fact that you see a game that is clearly half-finished, and that comes down to writing, that comes down to questing. There's one district of the game, Pacifica, in the southern end of the city, that has literally no content. It has like one side mission, whereas like the one you start in has dozens. They didn't finish the game. The developers were forced to rush it out the door before they felt comfortable with it. They were abused in order to do so, and the public's general trust was abused as well. The game is currently facing 4 different class action lawsuits, and I contend that's not enough. We need to put bad business practices when it comes to especially the treatment of developers from both higher-ups in companies and from the audiences, like the people who threaten them with death or like threaten reviewers. We all need to be treating our developers better, because better treatment and better working conditions invariably results in better products, in addition to it just being the most humane thing to do. So there you go. 2020 in a nutshell. Consoles looking pretty solid overall. Cyberpunk fucking sucks. Anything, do you guys maybe want to name your, like, favorite and least favorite games of the year? Really quick?
Yeah, sure, I can start. My absolute favorite of 2020, and a drawing that I made yesterday as well of it, is Hades. There is absolutely no doubt about it. I have put so many hours into it, and I still don't want to stop playing it. And I really did not have a similar feeling with the game in a long, long time. And my worst game, well, this is a pretty easy one, Cyberpunk, because I was waiting so long for it, and when it came out, it just hit me like a wet towel. It was so bad.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, like, released this year, the game I had most fun playing, WoW, because that's like a game I'll always come back to, unless they manage to ruin it somehow, which, considering Blizzard's Day, might happen.
They will put World of Warcraft on the phone.
if they just go hard on microtransactions, they can ruin
Yeah.
the game easily. But like the actual game I enjoyed most this year actually did not release this year. It was Hollow Knight on the PS4.
Mm.
I've been having so much fun on it lately, even though I get super fucking annoyed when I fail. But it also feels very nice when you succeed. And the worst game, yeah, I have to agree with Seth, Cyberpunk. Not because of the bugs though. I find bugs in games enjoyable as long as they're not like game breaking, like completely ruins your game.
Mm-hmm.
An odd head missing here or there is no big deal, little chuckle something.
Go to a
But
Ripper
like
doc, they'll fix it.
yeah, but like just like you said, the game feels unfinished. The game feels super rushed. The game feels like somebody was just like, oh, you know what, release it and we'll just fix it along the way and maybe nobody
Yeah.
will notice. And it's just
Everybody noticed a lot.
Yeah.
For me, my favorite game that was released this year that I've played anyway would have to go to either Neo 2 for its exceptional execution of the Dark Souls formula, or the Pillars of Eternity Deadfire complete edition that finally released for consoles very early on. That's some good stuff. Also, as like a come from behind, a little game I beat in 3.5 hours, again, Fallen Angel. If you guys are interested in indie, like vaguely Souls-like games on Steam, exceptional title that's well worth your time and can be beaten in a single sitting. Doesn't waste a single second of yours, provides some very diverse settings and bosses. It's good stuff. My least favorite game, far and away, would have to be Cyberpunk for the reasons I stated before. It feels like the writing, the execution, the overall design were very, very sloppy, and like the intent was to present players with this narrative that tried so hard to be edgy that it comes across as juvenile more often than not. Ditto for the world and characters, though there's like odd little nuggets like corn in the crap of a better product in there, and that's what makes it so like frustrating to play. My favorite game I played this year that didn't necessarily have to come out this year was Yakuza Kiwami 2, an extremely well-crafted open-world game with deep and engaging characters and story that is able to vacillate wildly between like comedy and drama from scene to scene and always pull it off, largely due to exceptional audiovisual design, the casting of some phenomenal top-rate actors from the Japanese film and VA industries, and integration of one of the most enjoyable combat systems and character progression systems I've ever seen in a video game. Top-notch stuff.
All right, that's it for the recap of 2020. As you've seen, you've heard, it's been a roller coaster of a year in every aspect. In games, I feel like it's been a little bit under average, I would say, but still not as bad. Any more closing words?
Yeah. Cyberpunk sucks. And I feel like game wise this year wasn't as bad as real life wise. Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of good games, a lot of, like Brady said, hidden gems. Like most of the big releases were sort of disappointing, and there was so many remakes, remasters, which I feel is like becoming an industry standard. Oh, we don't have anything like interesting to release this year. Let's just make a remaster. But other than that, decent year for gaming.
Yeah. Given everything that's gone on and how it disrupted the industry, how it disrupted the world, I would actually say that this is better than we could have expected. Now, one thing that I've learned as an instructor is, like, especially in times like this, you always have to scale your grading for extenuating circumstances. Like, what gets an A right now would not necessarily get an A during a regular season, right? So if I was to adjust my grading of the year similarly, I'd say this is a solid, like, C plus B minus year. Like better than I would have thought, not as good as I would have hoped.
Elfendar asks, was Cyberpunk's not still fun to play though? Initial impression from a lot of people before they ran into the bugs, etc. It seemed positive.
If you're running around the open world, just like fighting security guards and ticking off all the little boxes like you would in a Ubisoft game or something like that, yeah, moment-to-moment gameplay, like the mechanics, are perfectly functional and kind of like a dumbed-down Deus Ex, which actually facilitates quicker movement through the game world and objectives. All of that's fine. Driving, like controlling vehicles, especially now that I've had more experience, is abysmal. But my problem with it, and I think the problem of everyone here, is like compared to Witcher 3, compared to any robust RPG from the past couple generations, the writing and like characterization and like the way that the main character is written is really badly done more often than not.
It's forcefully edgy.
Yeah.
Like, look, oh, go ahead.
For a AAA game, 8 years in the making, it's extremely lackluster, and it just seems like it was made in like 2 years tops, and just like it feels like, I guess maybe the world generation was done, the most like time was wasted on that, and the rest was just, let's just rush it and release whatever we have.
Yeah, and the dialogue in particular is abysmal. It has the same problem that like Fallout 4 did, where you see a lot of dialogue options summarized without tone, so it's like, oh, here's a vague idea what you're gonna say. To give you an idea of how the game's written, after you suffer a really critical injury in an early game quest, you are speaking with your doctor, the person who patches you up, who is a friend, and one of the options, an optional like dialogue choice, is fuck ellipsis. And I read that and I think, oh, my character's going to explain, like, you know, how much pain they're in, or ask what happened to them, or something like that, because they're not feeling well. No, you choose that, and all you get is fuck. It's the kind of game that thinks like arbitrary depictions of suffering and incessant swearing automatically equal maturity and depth. And as I understand it, a lot of cyberpunk literature from the 80s has similarly not aged terribly well, because it is a criticism of certain like facets of like contemporary life, but it's exceptionally shallow. Oftentimes you have no choice but to be very rude or abrasive to people you encounter, even your friends, and the character is written in such a way that just asking for additional information, like you would in Witcher sometimes, often has your character like stopping just short of attacking the person they're talking with. It's not well done. It's not well done. It is a perfectly unpleasant thing to have to interact with. The moment-to-moment gameplay is fine.
All right, I think this is the perfect moment to wrap it up. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. This episode is going to be available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes, and also temporarily on my channel's VODs as well. We have not yet decided the theme for the next week, but we are gonna make sure it's something interesting. Well,
considering the current themes of the podcast, I'm sure the next week is also gonna have slight shitting on Cyberpunk.
That's not gonna stop, okay? It's like permanent diarrhea.
No. Yeah, just make it a tradition. Yeah.